My name is Holly Yeager, and I am 62 years old. 3 weeks before the hospital honored my 40 years of service, my daughter called to tell me she would be at the beach. She said it the way you cancel a dentist appointment. Her husband's family had rented a house on the coast and the dates ran straight through the Saturday my name was going on a brass plaque. So I gave her seat away. I invited the daughter of my best friend, a woman who died 3 years ago, and never got a plaque at all. What the hospital did on live television that night is not the part that broke me. What my daughter offered me 19 minutes before the cameras went on, that is the part one still cannot say out loud without stopping. Welcome back to Calm Drama Stories. This is where we sit with the quiet moments families do not talk about. The empty chair, the call nobody returns, the thing somebody finally says out loud after 30 years of not saying it. If a story here ever feels like it was written about your kitchen table, tell us in the comments. Drop a comment and be sure to subscribe. The call came on the 30th of May, a little after 7. I was standing at the sink with a dish towel over my shoulder. It was the third time I had told Marissa the date, and I had started to hear how that sounded, so I kept my voice light. She said the name of the beach town before she said anything else. Emerald Isle. The Pells rent the same house every June, 9 hours from my kitchen, and Adrienne pays for all of it, and it has become a fact of nature in that family, like weather. I asked if there was any way to move a few days. Marissa laughed, not unkindly. Mom, the house is booked. It'd be so rude to bail on them. Behind her, I heard a woman's voice, warm and unhurried, the way a good hostess talks over a room. Tell her we'll send something lovely. That was Adrienne. She has never once raised her voice at me in 7 years. She does not have to. I said, of course. I have said of course my whole life. I said it to charge nurses at 2 in the morning and to my ex-husband's attorney, and to a surgeon who once threw an instrument at a wall. It comes out of me like a reflex, and by the time I hear it, it is already true. We talked about sunscreen. We talked about whether Grant's back was better. I dried the same plate twice. What I did not tell her was that at 9 that morning in an office on the second floor of the hospital I had worked in since 1986, a woman named Bernadette Cray had asked me to come in Monday and bring my reading glasses. Here is what 40 years looks like from the inside. I started at Cedar Bluff Regional in June of 1986, 22 years old, with a nursing certificate I paid for by running a line at a cannery in Sandusky. I spent most of those years on nights in operating room 3, which is the cold one. My husband left in 1999 when Marissa was 6, and I raised her on a schedule that meant I was asleep when she got home and gone when she went to bed. And I made up the difference the only way I knew, which was money. My knees went bad around 2022. The right one is worse. I have postponed the surgery 4 times. Twice for staffing and twice because the deductible landed in a bad month. My pension will pay me $2,900 a month. I still owe $61,000 on a home equity loan I took out in pieces. A little for Ruth's out-of-pocket bills, a little for a wedding, a little for a semester of graduate school that did not finish. And every month for 7 years on the first $600 has left my account and landed in my daughter's car insurance, phone, what I called the cushion, because that is a nicer word than the other ones. I never asked her for it back, and I never mentioned it. Not once, not at Christmas, not when the roof went. I have never asked anybody for anything in my life. I thought that was a virtue. I thought it was the whole of my character, the load-bearing wall. It took me until this June to understand what a person teaches other people when she never once says she needs something. I met Ruth Dano in the fall of 1987, on a night shift nobody wanted. She was 2 years older and about 4 in shorter. And she taught me how to stand for 12 hours without wrecking my back, which is a skill, and how to tell a family the truth in a hallway, which is a different skill and harder. We were friends for 36 years. She had a laugh like a screen door. When her husband left in 2004, she moved into the rental behind the Presbyterian church, and never complained about it. And when I could not afford daycare, she took Marissa on Tuesdays and Thursdays and taught her to make pie crust with a fork. Ruth was diagnosed in the spring of 2022 and died in September of the following year, 61 years old, in a room 2 floors above the one where we met. I went back to work 2 days after the funeral. Everybody told me that was strong. It was not strong. It was the only place where my hands knew what to do without asking me. There is a thing she used to say when someone sent flowers instead of coming, or a card instead of coming, or a very nice basket instead of coming. She would look at the basket, and she would look at me. Show up, Holly. Anybody can send something. Her daughter Nell still works in this building. She moved to the unit desk after the funeral. Clerical phones and charts and insurance faxes. And she takes the long way around the surgical wing. I had walked past that girl in a hallway 300 times in 3 years. I realized standing at my sink with the dish towel still on my shoulder that I had not asked her one real question in all of it. Bernadette Cray runs the hospital foundation, and Dale Brandt is the attorney who handles their gift agreements, and on Monday morning they were both in the room, which told me something before either of them spoke. She started with a name I had not thought about in a long time. Arthur Kessner, February of 1998. A ruptured appendix that had gone septic. A Tuesday night, my patient, he lived. He is 81 now, and he sold his equipment business in 2019, and his family has decided to make a gift to this hospital in my name. Bernadette put the number on the table without any ceremony at all. $1 million. I heard the air conditioner. I heard my own pulse, which after 4 decades in an operating room, is a sound I recognize the way other people recognize their car. Then she explained the part that mattered. The donors had left the shape of it to me. I could direct the whole million into a named endowment. I would choose the name and I would choose the first recipient, 1 nurse or 1 aide, tuition and living costs, and it would fund somebody else every year after that. Or the family would instead make a personal distribution of $250,000 into my retirement, and the endowment would not exist. Dale said the designation had to be signed and sealed by Thursday the 18th, and that the envelope would be opened on the stage live at the ceremony on the 20th, because Channel 9 was covering it and the Kessners wanted the surprise. I said that was a lot of theatre for a nurse. Dale did not smile. He said it's their money and they'd like it to be a good night. I got as far as the parking lot before I thought about my niece. I got as far as my car before I thought about my daughter. It bothers me still that it was in that order. That night, I put the laptop on the kitchen table and did the arithmetic I had been avoiding since 2022. 250,000 pays off the 61,000. It buys the right knee in August and the left one in the spring. And it buys the 6 weeks off after each, which is the part nobody budgets for. It means I stop working nights at 62 instead of 67. It means the roof finally and a furnace that does not sound like a man clearing his throat. I wrote the numbers on the back of a pharmacy receipt, because I think better in pen. Then a second thought came in clean and quiet and sat down next to the first one. If I told Marissa there was $1 million attached to that Saturday, she would come. I did not have to wonder about it. I knew it the way you know your own hallway in the dark. She would move the beach house, or she would fly back for the night, or the Pells would suddenly discover the dates were flexible, after all, and there would be a photograph of the 3 of us under that brass plaque and everybody would say, "What a beautiful family." I sat with that for a while. The refrigerator cycled on. I did not like the woman who had that thought and I could not get her to leave the table. And the worst of it was how practical she sounded. I closed the laptop. I did not call anybody. I went to bed at 11 and lay there doing the only math I had left, which was 7 years of first-of-the-month transfers. And I stopped before I got to the total because some numbers you already know. That Sunday, I drove the 70 minutes down to Dublin for dinner, because I go once a month, and because I wanted to look at my daughter's face when the beach came up. The Pell house sits behind a low brick wall with lights along the drive. The table seats 12. There are cloth napkins on an ordinary Sunday. Adrienne met me at the door with both hands out and told me I looked rested, which is what she says instead of hello. Grant carved. He had just been made a regional manager at the family title company, which is a thing that can happen when your last name is on the sign, and he said it with such genuine pleasure that it was hard to hold against him. Grant has never in his life had a thought that was unkind. He has also never had one that was inconvenient. Marissa poured the wine and talked about the coast the way you talk about jury duty, an obligation she had made peace with. And I noticed the watch on her wrist, thin gold, the kind where you cannot even guess. Adrienne said the thing she always says, resting one hand flat on the tablecloth. We take care of our people, Holly. She means it. That is what makes it work. Later, over pie, Marissa mentioned that Adrienne had covered the down payment on their house in 2021, and she said it in passing, the way you would mention a neighbor lending a ladder. And I understood that I was hearing about it 3 years late, because it had not occurred to anyone that I would want to know. Then she patted my arm on her way to the kitchen. You'll be fine, Mom. You're always fine. I drove home in the dark with the radio off, and somewhere around the county line, I understood that she was not being cruel. She was reading a chart. She was reading the chart I had spent 33 years writing. On Tuesday the 9th, Bernadette sent me the seating sheet. Anna's get 2 places at the head table, and mine were printed on a single page, in a font somebody had chosen to look like handwriting. Chair 1A Holly Yeager Perioperative Services. Chair 2A blank. She needed the name by the 12th for the place card. I typed 3 different answers and sent none of them. I told myself there was still time, which is the kind of thing you say when you have already decided to wait for a person to become somebody else. I printed the sheet anyway, and put it on the refrigerator, under a magnet from a heating and cooling company, My Brothers. And every time I opened the door for milk, there it was, my name and an empty rectangle beside it. It occurred to me that I had been holding a seat for that girl since she was 20. Thanksgiving 2013, when she went to a boyfriend's family in Cincinnati, and I kept a plate warm until 9, the Christmas she had the flu, and then posted a photograph from a ski lift. My 60th, which we celebrated in July because June had not worked out. I have never once made a scene about any of it. I want you to understand that I did not think of these as grievances. I thought of them as weather, and I thought of myself as somebody who had a good coat. It was only when the chair had a number on it, a real chair 2A, that I started counting. And that is a dangerous thing to start doing at 62, because the number comes out fast, and once you have it, you cannot put it back. So on Wednesday the 10th, I did the thing I have never done. I called my daughter, and I said that the ceremony mattered to me out loud in words, and that I would pay the change fees on both tickets. So she and Grant could fly back Saturday morning and be at the beach again by Sunday night. I had already called the airline, $740 for the pair. I had the confirmation code written on the pharmacy receipt with the rest of my arithmetic. There was a pause on the line, and in that pause I heard a screen door in Gauls, which meant she was outside, which meant Adrienne was inside. Then she said, "Mom, Adrienne already paid for the house. It would be rude." I said the house does not know if you are in it. She said that was not the point, and she was right. It was not, and neither of us said what the point was. Then she brightened because she is not a hard person. She is a managed one. We'll do something for you in July. Something really nice. I said that sounded lovely. Something. That word again. In that family, something is always an object. Something has a bow on it and a card in a florist's handwriting, and it arrives in a van, and a person signs for it, and nobody has to change a single plan. I hung up and stood in my hallway a while. Up to that afternoon I had let myself believe this was a scheduling problem. Calendars, dates, bad luck, the kind of thing that can be fixed with $740 and a little goodwill. That was the first thing I lost. And I did not even feel it go. I found Nell Dano the next day on the landing of Stairwell B eating a sandwich out of a grocery bag with her badge turned around. She jumped when the door opened. I said I was hiding too, which was half true. And I sat down on the step below her because my knee will not do the same step twice. She has her mother's hands, same short nails, same way of holding a sandwich like it might get away. I asked how long she had been eating lunch in this stairwell, and she said since she moved to the unit desk. So 3 years, and she said it lightly. The way you say a thing you have decided is not worth minding. She was in the nursing program at the community college, and she withdrew in the spring of 2022 6 weeks after her mother's diagnosis, because somebody had to drive to Columbus twice a week. She is 29. She works the desk and answers phones and faxes prior authorizations to people who do not call back. Clipped to her lanyard is her mother's old badge clip, the plastic one with the chipped blue enamel. And she saw me see it and put her hand over it. Not embarrassed, just protective. In 3 years, that girl has not asked this hospital for one thing. Not a shift change, not a favor, not a letter. I asked whether she still had her textbooks. She said they were in a bin in her closet. And then she said, they are old editions now. In a voice that was trying very hard to sound like it was making a joke. I went back to the unit and sat down at a computer, and did not chart anything for 4 full minutes. Bernadette called on Friday about the deadline, and I let her get all the way through her reminder before I asked the question I had practiced in my car. Could I name my daughter? I made it sound casual. I even laughed a little at the end of it, the way you do when you want a question to be able to leave the room without you. Bernadette did not laugh, but she did not hesitate either. She said, yes, the honor may designate any individual. The endowment can be structured as a directed award, a named recipient, tuition, living stipend, the terms drafted around that person, and the family has been clear that the choice is mine. There was a silence while I wrote nothing on a pad. Then I heard myself ask the second question, and this is the one I would take back if I could. I asked whether the announcement would be public. Bernadette said yes, Liv. That was the whole idea. I said, right, of course, and thanked her and hung up. I sat in the car in the north lot with the keys in my lap. I want to be honest about what happened in that car, because it is the only way the rest of this means anything. I was not weighing whether my daughter deserved $1 million. I was calculating whether $1 million announced on television in front of 300 people, and a camera, would be enough to get her in a chair. That is a different question. That is not a mother's question at all. And it had come to me easily in my own voice, without any effort whatsoever. I want to stop here for a second because this is the part one have never told anybody. I sat in a hospital parking lot, and did the math on what it would cost to make my own child show up. If you have ever done that math for a daughter, a son, a brother, put it in the comments. Math? I would like to know I am not the only one. And if you are new here, subscribe. My brother Wade came out that weekend to look at the condenser unit, which has been dying politely since 2021. He is 58. He does heating and cooling, and he is the only person alive who remembers me at 9. He got the fan running and then sat on my back steps with a coffee, and I told him about the $250,000 because I tell Wade things. He got very still and then he said what he always says, which is the sensible thing. Take the 250 haul. Fix your knees. Don't make a scene. I said nobody had said anything about a scene. He turned the cup around in his hands and then, because he thought it was funny, because he genuinely thought it was a story about how kids are, he told me that Marissa had called him back in April, and somewhere in the conversation, she had asked him whether there was money attached to Mom's thing. He said it with a little laugh at the end. He waited for me to laugh too. I looked out at the yard where the grass needed doing, and I understood that my only ally in this family had just told me to be quiet, and had handed me the reason I could not. I called Marissa on Sunday under the cover of asking about the weather down there. She was in a store. I could hear the beeping of a register, and we did the small talk we are good at, which is the kind where nobody has to look at anybody. Then she said in the lightest voice she owns, "Hey, so Uncle Wade said something about your work thing. Is it like a bonus?" And there it was out in the open air in a checkout line 400 miles away. Something happens to me in the seconds after a question like that. My pulse goes down, not up. It has been doing that since 1991, when a 14-year-old came in off a highway, and the room got loud, and I found out what kind of animal I am. So my voice was perfectly even. I said it's a plaque, honey. She said that was nice and asked whether they were doing a dinner, and I said chicken or fish like everybody. And I stood in my kitchen holding a phone and understood that I had just lied to my daughter for the first time in 33 years. Not a soft lie. Not the Santa kind or the your haircut is fine kind. A hard, deliberate, load-bearing lie told to protect a number. I told myself I was protecting her from the temptation. That was not true either. I was protecting myself from finding out how fast she would move if she knew. That is the whole thing right there. The banquet room at Cedar Bluff is a multi-purpose hall with a bad ceiling and a good floor. And on Monday the 15th, they were setting it up early because a wedding had the space the following weekend. I went down on my break. I told myself I was checking the ramp for the nurse because Arthur uses a walker now. That was not why I went. The linens were halfen. 2 men were rolling out a section of parquet. The head table sat empty on the low riser, with its skirt already pinned, and the chairs were pushed in tight the way hotel chairs always are, facing the table facing the work. Mine had a card chair 1A, my name, the fake handwriting, and beside it chair 2A, and a blank card lying face up on the cloth. I stood there long enough that one of the setup men asked if I needed something. I said no. Then I went around the end of the table, and I put my hands on the back of chair 2A. I did not take it away. I have thought about why not. And the honest answer is that I could not. Not yet. Not that day. What I did was turn it. I pulled it out and swung it a quarter turn, so that it faced the room instead of the table. Not a place set for somebody who had promised, just a chair open facing whoever might walk in. It looked wrong. It looked like a mistake somebody would fix. I left it that way and went back upstairs and scrubbed in on a gallbladder. And for the rest of that day, and every day after, when things got quiet, I saw that chair turned out toward an empty room. Ruth would have had one sentence for it, and she would have said it while looking at a flower arrangement. Show up, Holly. Anybody can send something. Adrienne Pell called me directly that same evening, which she had not done in over a year. Her voice comes down the line like something poured. She asked about my knees before anything else, and she remembered which one, and that is not an act. That is a discipline, and it is worth respecting for what it is. Then she got to it. She said Marissa was exhausted. She said, the girl works full-time and manages the office remodel, and has been carrying more than anybody sees. She said, we take the burden off her, Holly. That's all we've ever done. I said I was not asking anyone to carry anything. Adrienne said gently that of course I wasn't. I never do. And something in the way she said it made the hair go up on my arms. Then she offered she would send an arrangement to the ceremony. She used a florist in Columbus. She said they do beautiful work. And would I prefer something in white or something with color? She would have it there by 4. She would have my name on the card and Marissa's name on the card and Grant's all 3. So the table would not look empty. I said white was fine. That is the phrase I keep coming back to. The one I still turn over at 2 in the morning. So the table would not look empty. Not so it would not be empty. She was not lying to me. In her mind, she was solving the problem I actually had, which was optics. And she was solving it generously, with her own money on short notice. And when I hung up, I sat with the fact that this woman knew the exact date of my ceremony and had known it for months, the same as everybody else. Nell caught me by the elevators the next morning and asked with a great deal of apologizing built into the front of it whether I would write her a recommendation. The hospital has a small tuition assistance award for support staff. $2,000 applications due in July. She had the folder with her, the old one from her first application in 2019, because they want the original transcripts, and she had never gotten them back. She handed it over and went to answer a phone. I opened it in the break room. Transcripts, a photocopied license, a personal statement written by a 22-year-old who used the word passionate twice. And behind all of it, folded into quarters and soft at the creases, a page of scheduling, Ruth's handwriting, 6 weeks of shifts, the ones she had traded away, Tuesday nights and every other Saturday, so that her daughter could be in a classroom. I know that handwriting better than my own mother's. She wrote her 7s with a bar through them. I sat in a break room, with a vending machine humming and a microwave with somebody's popcorn burned into it. And I did not cry because I do not do that at work. And because 38 years in this building has made that a matter of professional posture rather than feeling, I put the page back exactly where it had been. Then I looked at the award amount again. $2,000 does not cover a semester. It does not cover half of one. It is the kind of number that lets an institution feel like it has done something, and it is not anybody's fault, and it is not enough. The right knee went that same afternoon, 40 minutes into a routine case. I had been standing on a stool at the head of the table, and when I stepped down the joint simply did not accept my weight. I did not fall. I got a hand on the rail, and I got out of the sterile field without touching anything and the case went on fine, and afterward I sat in the sub-sterile hallway with my leg out straight, and my heart doing that slow thing again. Teresa Vance came and crouched in front of me. She has run this department for 6 years, and she is very good at her job. Which meant she did not ask if I was all right. She looked at the leg. She said, "I'm taking you off the O board through the end of the month." I said I could do a room from a stool. She said, "No." She said, "Holly, I'm not going to be the one who lets you finish 40 years on a gurney." She was being kind. It was the kindest thing anybody did for me that month, and it took the floor out from under me anyway, because standing in that room is the only argument I have ever made for myself. Not talking, not asking, standing. That night, I lay on the couch with a bag of frozen corn on my leg and the foundation's designation form on my lap. 1 line for the name of the fund and 1 line for the first recipient. I looked at that second line for a long time. Then I got up, which took a while, and went to the drawer, and I did not take out a pen. I wrote my daughter's name in pencil, Marissa Pell, on the recipient line in the mechanical pencil I use for the crossword. I told myself it was so I could look at it. That is what I said out loud in an empty living room to nobody, which should have told me something. And it did look good. That is the part one have to say. It looked like a photograph that had not been taken yet. The two of us under the plaque, her hand on my arm, her face doing the thing it does when a camera finds it, and the caption underneath about a mother and a daughter and 40 years. It looked like the end of a very long argument I have been having with myself since 1999 about whether I did it right. I put the form on the kitchen table, and I went to bed. In the morning, I made coffee and walked past it. That